when God has got a different plan and a purpose for your life, like he did with this man's life, it's amazing what can come out of it. Trust me when I tell you that. This is an incredible story. I don't know how they haven't done a movie on his life already. It should be. But it's an incredible story of redemption. It's not a Christian story as he tells it, but you'll hear it in the end. Incredible story.
I walk in redemption.
Hey everyone, welcome to another Sit Down with Michael Franzese. Hope everybody is doing well. Everything is very good, very blessed on this end. As always, I give all the praise, honor, glory, and thanksgiving to our God for that. You know, every once in a while you come across a story that just kind of blows you away. And you know, people come up to me all the time, Michael, what an amazing story you have. It's unbelievable. And you know, the amazing part of my story is that I'm alive and free and that God has done such a work in my life. And not unusual. God does that in a lot of people's lives, different ways, sometimes not as dramatically, but God is at work. Trust me on that. I've heard amazing stories. But this one is just, it's almost unbelievable, but it's true. And I was just blown away. I was like, I just couldn't believe this, you know, and I was listening to this gentleman, and he has he's a great storyteller. He has just such a good way to communicate. And I was really enraptured by what he had to say. And I'd heard about him, didn't know him too well. I'd seen him once or twice before, didn't really pay too much attention. But boy, when I sat down with him this time, it was like blown away. I could have sat with him for 5 hours. I'm definitely going to have him back because there was so much that we could have gotten into. But I want to read a little bit about him so that you know who I'm talking about. His name is Reeves. You might have heard of him before. And let me give you a little background. He was an American pilot who alleges that he was once one of the most prolific drug smugglers in history. There's no alleging. This was true. He worked for Pablo Escobar and the Medellín Cartel. Reeves employed Barry Seal, you remember the movie with Tom Cruise, as a pilot in many of his drug smuggling operations. In his memoir, Smuggler, that's the name of the book, and I really advise you to read it. Tremendous book. No, I haven't read it yet. I've read a little excerpts out of it, had people that read it, said it's amazing. Reeves claims that Seal, listen to this, paid millions in bribes to, I'm not going to tell you who, I'm going to let him do that. But listen to this, he served over 30 cumulative years in prison. He escaped 5 times. He spent time in German, Australian, and American penal institutions while supported by his wife throughout. That's something that you please do me a favor and wait, listen to this entire story. Listen to his entire interview. Right till the end when a special guest jumps on for a moment. You got to hear what this person had to say. Reeves was shot down twice in Central America. He was brutally tortured in Mexico. Brutally tortured in Mexico. He was lost in the Amazon for 11 days. And I said to him, the Amazon, we've never seen that. We see something, what was it like being in the Amazon? He'll tell us. He was chased down every backyard on the planet, incarcerated in 26 different prisons, in 7 countries on 4 continents for 33 years. The man did 33 years in prison, yet he escaped 5 times. Figure that one out. I'm not gonna give you any more insight to that. This is an incredible story. I don't know how they haven't done a movie on his life already. It should be. I didn't ask him that. Maybe he just wasn't interested. I don't know. But it's an incredible story. It's an incredible story of redemption. It's not a Christian story as he tells it, but you'll hear it in the end. Incredible story. You know, people, when God has got a different plan and a purpose for your life, like he did with this man's life, it's amazing what can come out of it. Trust me when I tell you that. But you got to listen to this. Before we switch to that really quick, Maniac, M-I-N-N-E-C-T. I've been getting so much communication on that platform, Maniac.com, M-I-N-N-E-C-T.com, or you can go and get the app. You want to have a conversation with me, you want to have a text message with me, we can go back and forth on it. It's been great. Patrick Bet-David created the platform, and it's been great. A lot of other people on it too. You know, people that you may want to be in touch with. Great platform. Cameo, of course, you know that. I've gotten so many cameos over the years. Happy birthday, Merry Christmas. How's everything? Congratulations on your graduation, whatever you want me to say. People are enjoying that, and I enjoy doing it. So you got those two platforms if you want to reach out for me. Franzese Wine, thank you. It's being received so well all over the country. We'll be in 12 states by the end of the year. In markets all over the place, restaurants, you name it, we're there. And of course, Slices Pizza. I'm telling you, when you taste this pizza now, you're going to taste our frozen pizza and think that you're in the pizza store and it came right out of the oven. Guaranteed, you can hold me to it. So that's it. So without any further delay, let me introduce my guest. I know you're going to stay till the end. Listen to this man. Listen closely. He happens to be in South Africa. That's how we did this, but you're going to be enthused. No further delay, my guest, Roger Reeves. But Roger, really a pleasure to meet you. I have heard so much about you. You've been interviewed by a couple of dear friends of mine, Patrick Bet-David being one of them a couple of years back. Good guy. Patrick and I know each other for quite some time. Very interesting interview. And, I said this earlier, but people come to me and tell me, Michael, you have such a fascinating story. And, I hear that all the time. I'm sure you do too. But when I meet somebody like yourself, I look at my story and I go, wow, this guy's got a story. And really is quite amazing, Roger. And, a couple of things I want to key in. But my first question to you, how do you go from a farm boy who, the way I believe you still have love for that life, to being the pilot for Pablo Escobar? How did that transition take place? Fascinating.
Quite a long story, but I read the book Jungle Pilot, The Life of Nate Saint, when I was a young fella, and I just thought my heart burned. Oh, I would love to do that. I'm a Christian. I was raised in the church, and how that fella flew the missionaries and the sick people in and out of the jungle. I said, I'm no preacher, but boy, I'd love to do that. Maybe it was just part of the excitement, but part of it was doing something good for the world. And we went broke farming. My wife and I, we put in too many chickens, and so I decided to make some moonshine whiskey. So I made 1,000 gallons of moonshine whiskey. I got shot up and down the icy creeks and swimming and getting away from the bloodhounds, and it was lots of fun. I mean, I laughed at that. I don't know why, but it was just like, I can't believe it. So we were so broke until, we call it paralyzed broke. I went out to California and went to work. And so I got on after freight or driving nails for a year or two. I got on the fire department in Redondo Beach, California. And then I started making money. I had an antique business on the side, and I made me a little airplane. I'd fly down to Mexico, my wife and a couple of babies, and fly back. And somebody said, why don't you bring some marijuana with you? I don't know anything about that. So he said, oh man, it's the hottest thing since pancakes. I said, what do you pay? So they introduced me, fellow said, you bring some back? I don't know. He said, I'll give you $10,000. Wow, back in 1973, that was about 2 years take-home pay.
Yeah.
I said, throw some of that hay in there. And so they did, and give me $10,000 in a paper sack. I put it on the bed. We didn't know anybody, anything. But my wife put her hand over her mouth. Oh, my goodness. And the babies grabbed $100 bills and crawling around. And I went to see a lawyer, and I said, Mr. Lawyer, here's $100. What happened to me if I got caught bringing some pot back from Mexico? He said, what's your criminal history? I don't have one. He said, nothing. I said, no, sir. I never had a speeding ticket, not even a parking ticket in my life. And you'll get probation. Probably. But the worst, you get 1 year and you spend 4 years in a camp breaking leaves. And I thought, mister, I have found my perfection. So I went back and bought me a little bit bigger airplane, a bigger Cessna 207. I could bring 1,000 pounds back now. And I made $40,000. I tell the story of bringing my mother out to Disneyland and taking her to Disneyland in my new Cadillac. And she said, what you doing, boy? I said, I'm holding the pot, Mom. She said, what are you making? I said, I'm making $40,000 any day I want to go down there. And she said, what would happen if you get caught? And I told her what the lawyer said. And she said, I said, what do you think? She said, do you need a co-pilot, son? That's how it started. Wow. And then later I got shot down and tortured in a Mexican prison, and I moved to Colombia where things was more organized.
Wait a second, Roger. Don't just go over that so easily. You got shot down in Mexico.
correct?
Yeah.
Who shot you down?
I was landing on a little 900-foot sand bed in the bend of a river, then at a place called Pichilinki, just north of Mazatlan. And the little guy there had to starve and donkeys and the whole thing, and I'd give him $17,000 for the load. And he said it was paid off. Every day I was doing a load. And I was bringing it up in the United States and flying back. My wife was packing packages, things for the children and candies and little toys and stuff. And I'd put the airplane in and go back. So it was just like the American Santa Claus is coming, and more children were showing up. But anyway, I'd land on that little runway and spend the night. And then the young fellow would get in the plane with me and go over on the highway, maybe a freeway, and they would block it with guns and trucks. And I'd land between it. They'd bring that 1,000 pounds of marijuana, put it in the plane. I'd shake hands with all of them and get back in the airplane and fly again. But on number 13, that little thing was ticking in my stomach like, And so the next morning when I cranked up the airplane, I was about halfway down the strip, thought a tire blew out. Pedro was beside me, said, Policia, Policia, Policia. And I just put it to the firewall and the throttle and went tearing down the strip. And when I got to the end of it, there was 4 of them with machine guns or
Wow.
AK-47. Anyhow, they put 80 bullet holes in that airplane. And I shot the cables into it, and it shot up above me, shot all the windows out, and the bullet spattered on the strut. I guess I had 100 pieces of lead in me, just worked from the spatter. And I went into shock, I suppose. I was hit 3 times, and the world turned really slow. Like the world just turned really, really slow and turned kind of a yellowish color. And I reached over and cut off all the gas and the fuel as I plunged to the rocks. It was in a riverbed about knee deep, and the rocks looked like, they were huge, and they looked like the backs of a turtle. Things have patterns. And I hit, and the wings came off, and then I hit again, and the nose came under the airplane. And I must have been knocked out because this young fellow Pedro said, "Come on, Roger, come on." And I kind of got up, and 2 of the federales was running down the stairs, still shooting, and a couple of them hit the airplane. And I carried a pistol in there, a 9mm Browning high power, 13 bullets. I didn't have it to hurt anybody, anything. I just thought if I crash in the jungle, it'd be nice to have something.
Sure.
You don't know. So that thing was now, since the motor was all turned down, it was laying right up here in a holster. And I just picked it up and pop, pop, pop. And those federales went into the rocks, and it was like when the rabbits got the gun, the farmer he run. So we went on up the road, and I saw that the boy that was with me, his foot was nearly shot off. And we went on and found an old donkey and got on it and went and got away. It's quite a wonderful story there about that I write about it. Is how we did get away on that donkey.
And did you end up in a Mexican prison also?
Yes, I did. And I was tortured almost to death in there. But not from that time. I went back to see about getting my money in another load, and I was captured there. And they put me in, and I don't know about now, probably just as bad or worse, but it was terrible. I mean, it was just unbelievably barbaric. They put me in a cell after about 3 days in a huge cell with all people coming and going. I was put in a little cell, probably 5 foot square, maybe 10 feet tall. And it was back in the torture area. And it was filthy. I mean, filthy. Blood and feces and stuff were just everywhere. And that's where they beat all the dope addicts and whatever coming in to get a confession. And they was going to beat a confession out of me. So they beat me up pretty bad several times, kept me naked on that floor in that little cell. And you couldn't stretch out. It was too little to break. And I know that they would kept the light on all the time, so you couldn't tell what time it was. And then they would probably feed you every 2 hours, and they wouldn't feed you for a day. So you get messed up with the time. And you could hear them beating and thumping on people outside. And every once in a while they'd open the door and some very cuss words, "You're next." So they put my head under silk board. And after one whiff of that, 3 of them can't hold you down. So I learned just before you have to take a whiff of that, you act just like crazy and can't come up. So I did all right with that. So then they took me out. They had little chains, and they handcuffed me and pulled me over a barrel naked and buttered up my bum. I said, "Oh."
Wow.
So then they packed me completely full of hot chili pepper,
Wow.
and it really was terrible. I mean, just terrible. I said some ugly words. So after that, finally got washed out, and then they came in with a dead man. He was a black skinny man, and he was wrapped in uh, newspaper about 1 inch wide, or not maybe, and he was ice cold. I mean, he was frozen block, and he was all wrapped like a mummy. There was nothing you could see of him, and that it was at least 100 degrees in that cell. It was June, and so he hung there on a meat hook in the side of his open, and as he started to thaw out, it looked like he was crying, and the tears coming down his eyes, out on his face. And then the paper started unraveling around his orifices, and he started puddling formaldehyde on the floor.
Mhm.
And there was a little space under the door, filthy floor, and I put my face under there just as close as I could, and put my lips out and trying to suck some fresh air. And I had the most vivid dreams or visions of pink pigs flying with wings. Maybe walked in and did some of that to get this idea. But anyway, that's what it was like. And I woke up in the hospital with a doctor that had tears in his eyes. He was saying, "Breathe, man, breathe, breathe." And I come to it. I was sick there for a couple of weeks. That's how I was tortured in a Mexican prison. And I didn't go back.
Now, did they put that corpse in there just another form of torture?
Yeah, it breaks people. It didn't bother me a bit. I killed hog and cows all my young life on the farm.
Uh-huh.
Dead man didn't bother me, but that formaldehyde got to me.
Gotcha. Let me ask you, how long after the first encounter, when they shot you down and you escaped, until this second encounter happened in Mexico?
Yeah, I moved. It was some years. I started hauling marijuana out of Colombia with a big old DC-3, and I went to see the guerrillas. Some guy told me I was supposed to be here, and then he had okay, we got more gas. We got to go 400 more miles, and it messed up my plan pretty bad. So we got there to where the guerrillas fart were, and they said, "Out of here, get out of here, get out of here." So I left, and then I was intercepted by Colombian jets, and they shot me down. It was during the World Series in 1981, and they shot me down, and I believe if you could find a tape, I landed in a big pasture. I had not pulled the safety pins out of the struts when I took off, so I couldn't retract the gears. So I landed in a big pasture, and it just flopped, and those 105-foot wings just flapped away, and the fuel caps came off, and they just been shooting up the wing tips and some in the tail. So I pulled the trucks out so I could get out. Thought I might want to get back to Costa Rica, but when I took off, they peppered it really bad. So I put it down, bogged it down, right up on its nose, and I got out, reached in. It was 90 degrees to the ground, and the whole front of it was just caved in. And I pulled my satchel out, went down the road. It got away, and I was 11 days in the jungle. And I asked him, "I'm just avions. Where's airplanes?" I was going to steal one and get out of there. And I was in a dugout canoe, and this is interesting. And I was just trying to communicate with my wife, Mari. "I'm alive. I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm okay." And she said she was taking a shower, and she heard me say it.
Wow.
And that's after 11 days, I came to where the airplanes were, and I went in and the gal said, "How did you get here?" "I'm just touring the Amazon." "Well, we don't have tourists." I said, "What is this place?" And she said, "You don't know. This is Loma Linda, headquarters for the Missionary Aviation Fellowship for the Amazon."
Wow.
They put me in a cabin that night with a redheaded electrician that I had worked for the same company that he did in Torrance, California. And he was on fire for Jesus. He he really was. And I thought, how God just taps us on the shoulder sometimes. I saw, so the next day the missionaries flew me out, and I thought that's what I should have been doing.
Wow. Let me ask you this, because, we all hear about the Amazon, but we don't really know too much about it. What did you encounter in 11 days in the Amazon?
Mostly insects. And
Insects.
really wonderful people. Just the native people were so nice to me. I bought a block of sugar that was unrefined and it was brown sugar. And I kept that in a St. Paul's cleaner bag. And I just put the river water from it. And that's what I ate and drank and lived on. But they sometimes, oh, I was just fed fish and treated so well with the native people. Yes. And, but the bugs, it just was terrible.
Are they huge bugs? Big ones?
So just bugs were everywhere. You walk through that tall grass and they'd just eat you alive and sweat and hot. And I remember I told my satchel, it was thing got heavy.
And what about snakes of any kind? Any snakes?
So the snakes run from you. They got those anacondas, but people have to walk
Yeah.
in the mud and find them and catch them. And then I'm not afraid of anything like that. And also, I ran across some people that had a lot of jaguar hides. And
Really?
they put their dogs there as traps so they can shoot them. Those jaguars run from you. The animals are not dangerous to
Really?
people.
Huh. That's interesting. I have to say this. You were, from what I read about you, you were in 26 prisons in 7 countries,
Yes.
in 4 continents for 33 years. How you must have, I mean, God is really, you have a guardian angel for sure. That's 100%.
Absolutely.
And for
And he
all of you
walked with me and he
listening,
talked with me.
For all of you
Yes.
listening, if Christianity was ever real for any of you, it should be now because this man is a Christian and he has survived things that I don't think anybody else can survive. God obviously had a different plan and a purpose for your life, but how did you get through all of this, Roger? I mean, what kind of constitution do you have? You know, it's so difficult, and I understand that.
I don't know, but I know that God is with me and in me and all around me, and the Holy Spirit is there with us. And I credit to all that. Otherwise, it wouldn't have happened. My wife waited on me all those 33 years. She helped me escape from prison, and she was just there and raised the children. That was a big, big help to have somebody that's behind you 100%. And through that all, I don't know, it just rolled off of my back like a duck in water. I didn't do too bad. I read 2 books a week. I tried to. They weren't too big. And I played a game of chess almost every day of my life. One game. And then I ran. Marathons. I run half marathons. Anytime I could get a chance to get on the oval, I ran. And they said, Roger, why do you run so? I said, it helps me suffer these foods. So that was what I did in prison.
And all in all, you served over 30 years, correct?
33 years, full on.
And your wife, I always say, I did 8 years in prison. My wife went through many challenges also, but she stayed with me through all that time. And your wife stayed with you through all 33 years.
Oh yes, she's a saint in this family. We raised 3 children. They're all successful, wonderful children. Stayed there, kept.
Well, I tell
Just
you
it
what,
was
there are not too many women like that around anymore, Roger. I think we have two of the good ones, I would say, far better than we are.
oh absolutely 1 in 10 million, I guess.
Yeah, no doubt. But man,
Yes.
that's tremendous. And all of this was as a result of really all the drug running, correct? All the drug,
Oh
all the drug running, all the
yes, all of
everything
it,
was
of course.
related to you transporting the drugs.
Right. I got 35 years for possession of marijuana. They charged me with continuing criminal enterprise, which carries life in prison.
Yeah.
And I had to give up millions and millions of dollars to get that charge dropped. And I guess John Gotti I was number 41 charged with that terrible crime. And John Gotti was number 42.
Yeah.
So can you imagine for possession of marijuana that I got such a terrible, the prosecution just screaming for life.
No, and now they're pardoning people for possession of marijuana. They're actually pardoning
Yeah.
them. It's
I got before a big billboard and I said, look here, folks, I just got out of prison after 33 years for marijuana. And the first sign I see coming down the road is, relax, we deliver your marijuana to your house.
Isn't that amazing? It's something I know.
It's unbelievable.
So let me ask you, how did you eventually get involved with Escobar? Which, by the way, I'm going to be sitting down with his son fairly soon. You know, they got a couple of things
Okay.
going. So it'd be interesting to me. How did you eventually make that connection?
All right. There was a fellow come there that I used to buy airplanes from, and he told me that there's going to come a ship not to unload the marijuana. And of course, I had to give them $65,000 for the fuel. And of course, he took off and never came back. So I went down looking for him. And I found him down in Colombia, and he said, "Oh, let me introduce you. That's not good." So we went up in the Envigado outside of Medellin and to a gate that rose up, and the two guards with guns let us in, and we went up a stony road in an old house of bromeliads hanging from the trees. They must have been 40 people in the old fedora hats out there waiting in front of the hitching rails. And he escorted me right in, and a beautiful woman there offered us coffee, and then took us in to see Jorge Ochoa. Jorge spoke some English, and I liked it. On his desk was 12 telephones, all different colors. And he told me that each one of those phones from a different city in the United States, and that if this blue one rings, that's Seattle. And the red one rings, that's New York. And so then I got talking to him, and he asked about my experience. I told him I'd hauled over 100 loads into the United States of marijuana. And he asked me what airplanes I had, and I had a Wind Beach or Beach 18. I had a DC-3, and I had a turboprop Aero Commander, the 690. And he said, "Well, I'll give you $5,000 a kilo for every kilo that you haul." And wow, that's I mean, you put on it. And he said, "Well, from 3 to 500." So I figured out right quick in my math, that's 1.5 million to. And he said, "Well, I want you to meet my compadre." So he sent the pretty woman over next door, and then came Pablo Escobar. And Pablo didn't speak any English, but I speak enough Spanish. And he asked me the same questions. And nice man, just as kind, gentle, found about my size. He had on starched khaki pants, shine brown shoes, and a plaid shirt. And shook hands well. And he asked about the airplanes and how I'd gotten into the United States with them. And I told him what I had. And he said, "Well, we got all the work you can do at $5,000 a kilo." And then he went away. So I went back, got my airplane, and went to work.
Hmm.
I
Wow.
did 30 loads right after one right after the other one.
And did you have much, communication with Escobar himself?
Yes. Once he took me out. I guess right after that, he wanted to meet me, and we flew out in I think a Piper, twin engine Piper, and went to a farm that he had bought. And we got on some horses and rode around like we was pretending to round up those cows and the old burnt stumps. And there was some motorcycles there. I guess there was 5 or 6 motorcycles there was dirt bikes. And he asked me if I could ride one. I can ride one. It was early in the morning. Dew was all on the grass. And it was about an 8 deep. So I started one, and the other boys started one. And I took off, and bam, and there was a little ditch there. It was about that wide and deep. And that wheel fell in it. And I slid about 20 feet right across that wet grass. And they almost fell off their bikes laughing at me. So that was one time I spent that day with him. And then another time I was they was getting further and further into the south, and we was coming into Mena, Arkansas at that time, Bill Clinton territory. And I was paying $50,000 every time the wheels touched the ground up there in Mena. And so I was complaining about the length of the runway. So this time I landed there, and a helicopter landed, a brand new Bell, and he got out there with a young fellow named Benjamin, and he said, "This fellow's going to show you something that you need to know." So Benjamin got in there with me, and we started north, and we went into a military base in Nicaragua and met the generals and the people in charge of it. And he said, "You can come in here anytime you want to, anytime, day or night. Just radio silence. Don't say a word. Your airplane will be fueled up. Your windshield will be cleaned, and you'll be on your way when you get ready." So, I mean, I went there every time, steak and eggs, and while they filled the airplane up, and wait till the right time. I waited. I wanted to come in right before dark. I came in through the oil wells off the coast of Louisiana, put it down real low and slow. came in with the helicopters. So that worked for a long time. And
Yeah.
that's
From your impression, just meeting with him, I mean, what kind of guy was he? You hear so many
he was a
stories.
gentle speaking guy. Just gentle. You couldn't tell. It just seemed like just like a person like myself, but you wouldn't know later on that I guess he went completely berserk. He got billions of dollars and they started killing his people and he started killing theirs. And I give you $1,000 for every policeman you killed. And I think they were killing his people. At that time in Colombia, there was three factions that was in the business: the military, the FARCs, and the white Colombians, the Contras. And I was working with the white Colombians, the Contras, and they was rather at war with each other. So there was nobody was playing fair at that time at all. They was killing each other.
Yeah, it's a crazy story with him. You hear so many things, and you don't know what to believe because I'm always very hesitant in listening to the media. That's why I'm really interested in speaking with his son. But let me ask you, were you ever worried during that time? I mean, scared of the people around you? How'd you accept
Not
it?
at all. I was their hero. They would have shot anybody else to protect me. You bringing that kind of money to them, they really pleased. No, I was never ever anything. Never an unkind word.
Well, you said something that was kind of fascinating to me, and this is a statement that you made. And you said, you can tell a lot by a voice, by the way of delivery. Even today, I can learn anything I need to know about a man just by hearing his voice. Truth or lies are there. What do you mean by that?
I don't know, but it's just a gift you have, and the sound of someone's voice tells me a lot. And it's just like stay away or come closer. That's about all I have with it. And it's man or woman or child. The voice is so important to me.
Well, I have to ask you this now that you've heard my voice. What's the impression that you get?
I get an honest man for sure. Yes.
Well, I appreciate
Right.
that, Roger. And I'm sure you've been told this in the past. The way you relay a story and just the calmness in your voice, you're a natural storyteller. That's for sure.
Well, thank you. You go back. I read a lot of Swedenborg's books, Heaven and Hell, and he was saying that angels can hear one sentence of you and tell all about you
Hmm.
if they can hear just one sentence that you're speaking.
Well, I think I believe that. I really do. You can tell a lot by obviously the way somebody conducts themselves, but really their voice does. When I read that, I thought about it for a moment and I said, he's right. You really can't tell. You get some insight into a person by the way they speak, the sound of
Yes,
their
for
voice.
sure.
You said something else that you have in common with a very notorious figure. You said, I'm good to all, but don't mistake kindness for weakness. I'll sit on a bench. If you sit down and push against me, I'll slide over, maybe even give you the money in my pocket. If you take up even more room, I'll slide down even more without a word. But please don't push me off the end of the bench. That's the place you don't want to go with me. I love that.
That's that's the way I am too.
Yeah.
You see, not my own. I left him in the guy's neck.
Well, that's a good way to be. You know who you have that in common with? Al Capone. Al
Okay,
Capone, yeah. He said, I'm kind to everybody, but don't mistake my kindness for weakness, because if you're unkind to me, it's not weakness that you're going to see in me. And it's very telling. But I
we had a
appreciate that.
warden. We had a warden at Lompoc, and he had a cutout of me on the stage when he came up. And these guards were said, "You're the most dangerous man in this prison." What you talking about? And he said, "Don't let." And he pointed to that cutout. And he said, "Don't let that smiling face fool you."
Now,
I would get.
which institution were you in Lompoc? I spent a couple of years in Lompoc. Were you
I
in
was in all of them.
you were in all of them?
I
You made
spent
it?
I spent 11 years in the maximum. I spent I think about a year in the farm. I think of a few months in the medium.
Oh, okay. I was in the medium. I only processed in the maximum, then spent 3 years in the medium. Wasn't
That
it?
was worse than the maximum. All them sagging beds and
Yeah.
150 people in one. Oh my goodness! I was in Pleasanton with the women, 400 women and 200 men.
Uh,
What a good time we had. We wore our own clothes and walked with the ladies. And my wife visited me pretty often.
I was going to say, how the heck did you make it? Everybody wanted to go to Pleasanton, but it wasn't easy to
I
get.
didn't even know what it was about. They just sent me there. Anyhow, I got a senator to put in to go, and what a disappointment when I got back to the medium there in Long Park with them sagging beds and all the noise all night and the terrible food and the allergies. I didn't like that. The maximum was much better.
Really,
People
huh?
respected each other. Oh, the
Yeah,
other
well, you
they
know
didn't
what?
respect.
Yeah, in the maximum security prisons, people they know how to do time there. They normally
Yeah,
respect it.
absolutely. You don't cut the line, do you get the you get the blade.
Exactly. Well, let
Is
me
what
ask
a
you this.
lesser one.
This is probably a difficult question for you because you've done so much time in so many different prisons, but what's some of your most memorable prison stories or prison experiences, I should say?
Well, the ones that blaze brightly with me are my escapes. I just love to escape from prison. The smile just gets all the way up here, as you go.
Well, you got
Anyway, one of the brightest ones is I was arrested in Spain. That was after Barry Seal had told, and he had been killed, and they put me on the 10 most wanted list, and I was finally, and I went to Brazil, and I was arrested in Spain, and I got away from the police 3 times after
Hmm.
they arrested me, and my wife wouldn't. So anyway, they arrested me with my hands over my head like this and 2 sets of leg irons, and they took me to court for extradition, both to Germany and to the United States, double extradition. And they took me up lots of stairs in the big courtroom, and the uh, the judge was late coming in, and they're very pregnant stenographer across the way on a big desk, filing her fingernails, looking bored. And there had 4 policemen or 4 guards behind, 4 policemen behind me. And when 2 of them left, I asked the guard, I said, "How high are we?" He said, "You'll kill yourself." I said, "I'm dead anyway, man." So as soon as 2 of them left, they had to take my handcuffs and put them in front of me and take the leg irons off for the courtroom. They can't have you presented before a
Right.
judge like that. So I bound across that courtroom like a deer, and I jumped up on that stenographer's desk, and she screamed and slid backwards. Said she almost had that baby right there later. And so I kicked that window, and I could hear a big sucking sound in that courtroom. I think my wife was the last, and I looked down, and it was a long, long way down. But on the fire department, I had practiced jumping into the nets from that high. And I jumped on top of a parked car that was parked up sideways, a station wagon, and the top of it went all the way almost to the ground to the drive shaft. And
Wow.
the windshield blew over four cars, and it looked like it was snowing going up as I crawled out of that car and took off down the street, and I got away. And the newspaper says the next day, Spider-Man escapes.
Spider-Man. Did you break
So
anything
it
on the,
just,
did you hurt
pardon?
yourself?
Yeah, I got hurt because I have a dead spot in my back that itches me to this day. It's
Hmm.
got a little hair on it spot about the size of a nickel. It must have been some nerve damage there when I jumped.
Wow. So you didn't give it a second thought then, huh? Let me ask you, what prepared you, maybe in your childhood, the way you grew up, what prepared you to be so, I guess fearless is the word, Roger, in everything that you've encountered, and now jumping out of a, whatever story window it was to jump to safety. I mean, something had to prepare you for all of this.
I don't know. My mother said when we went to the beach as a baby that I would just go right into the wave. She had to put a harness on me.
Hmm.
And I remember when I was little, I jumped off the loft onto the mules and got stomped under them. I just had a little bit of a down in Australia says you have a little more dash than most people. But I'm not fearless at all. I get scared as anybody. That airplane gets on fire, I think I'm fixing to die. Oh boy, oh boy. Then do something quick.
But you are pretty much of a daredevil. No question
Yes,
about that.
absolutely. Yeah, I don't that's true, yes. I do things that a
Let
lot
me
of
let
people
me
wouldn't do, but then a lot of people do them.
Yeah. Well, I always say you don't know what you can do until you're faced with a situation and you have to do it.
Absolutely.
Let me ask you, Barry Seal, because obviously everybody knows Tom Cruise played him in the movie. What was your relationship or your encounter with him? How was that?
I love Barry. Just to mention of his name, I wish he was still here. He'd have come got me out of one of those prisons if I if he'd have been alive. Me and him, we were friends. Barry Seal was a friend of mine for sure, and I hired him, and Those are my airplanes. He didn't know those people, and I hired him, and he flew for me
You did
until
well.
I went to prison. Yeah,
Was he, did you see the movie with Tom Cruise?
yeah, I saw it. A terrible movie.
I was going to say, was that anything like his character?
No, Barry was princely. He could have been a president or senator or something that or nothing like Tom Cruise. It was just
Really,
like
huh?
Barry was smart, a gentleman, so nice to everybody. Always had a little smile on his face, and the best pilot I've ever seen. He made me sick when we went up flying. He was like
Yeah.
the Blue Angel. Yes, he could do it.
How long did he work for you?
About 2 years.
Okay. Yeah, it's another. He had to have a lot of the daredevil in him, also. Barry
Oh,
had.
absolutely. When I hired him, first off, I was bringing the cocaine from Colombia up to Belize, and I was taking out my airplane, putting it in his. And then when I got that deal with Nicaragua, I told him about it, and he said, "Let me just do the whole thing." So I had to buy him these Panther airplanes, the special ones, and he just went to work. But he
Yeah.
wouldn't go until I paid him completely for what I owed him. And so I paid him $2,000 a kilo. So at 500 kilos is $1 million each time. So he'd moan and groan about not getting paid, but I had to wait a week or two to get my money. So I'd pay him sometimes out of my money ahead of it. So I remember one time I went into a grocery store and I saw these Stay Free mini pads, and I bought a pack of them and put it in that box with $1 million in it. And he opened that up and he thought that was the funniest thing he had ever seen. And he made a spot on his mantelpiece for those Stay Free mini pads.
Let me ask you, did you ever have a problem collecting your money from Pablo or any of those the drug runners?
Yes, whenever I went to prison, they owed me, I remember exactly, $3,382,000. Jorge Ochoa was the one that was responsible. And I think that the man, I had a contact that was getting a percentage for what he did named Mario. And I think that they paid him the money and never gave it to me because
Mm.
he's kept me from seeing those people ever since. And now they don't want to get involved in I tried to get it. I spent several months down there trying to see them. And,
So you never
they
did get
never,
it.
never did get a penny. Never did even get to talk to the man. They
Wow.
was he wouldn't see me, so there was a gate open at his place, a big wall, and they was having a party with the balloons up. So I walked through, and he sent his pistolero to escort me out, and it made my face turn red. They came to me 3 times while I was in Lompoc and said, "If you will testify, we will walk you out today.
Mm.
We won't Pablo Escobar and Jorge Ochoa." And so I didn't testify, and I did 11 years for parole violation. That's the longest in the world, I reckon. Nobody on earth has ever. They got me for leaving the jurisdiction illegally, 1,132 months. I took them to court and told them to take this off, and they came back and they said, "Okay, we're going to take that off, but you're a bigger risk than we had originally assessed, so we're going to give you 132 months. How do you like that?"
Wow.
Terrible
Wow,
people.
I've never heard
It-
of that in my life, and I have a lot of experience in that regard. Never heard that before. Wow.
7 years the most I've ever heard of, and I did 11.
Yeah.
Silent beef, they call it.
Unreal. Well, my dad ended up doing 30 on parole violations, but there were 5 violations. He kept, there were a few years at a time.
Different time, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. But never that.
It was terrible.
He had a 50-year sentence, so they could have kept bringing him back until that 50. Let me,
I had a 35.
what was that?
I had 35 for possession of marijuana, 35-year sentence.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unreal. It drives me crazy today when I see friends of mine that got, 20, 25 years for gambling. And now the government is the biggest gamblers in the world right now. They're the biggest
Oh, it's just terrible.
bookmakers. Yeah,
I see you're a Christian. Would you let me tell you a really, really wonderful Christian story?
absolutely.
All right. When my wife and I came out of Brazil, my wife is from Holland, so we went to Amsterdam, and I was getting my hair cut. And the gal was chatty, and I told her I was from California. And a nice looking man came, sit down over there, and she said, "Oh, here's Floyd. He's from California too." And so hello, how are you? And what do you do? He said, "I'm a missionary here in Amsterdam." I said, a missionary in Amsterdam? He said, yes, I'm a missionary to the dope addicts and the prostitutes.
Mm.
And I must say, I thought, you know, but then we had coffee and I thought, he's a man of God. Really, he is. And we went to dinner with him, my wife and I. And then I was later on, a year or two later, I was arrested in Spain. And after I escaped from that, they caught me after I escaped from the courtroom. And I was sent to Madrid to a real maximum security prison. And I stayed there 17 months waiting on extradition both to the United States and to Germany. So one day, it was pretty nice, but at 12 o'clock, they locked you up until about 3 o'clock. In a long room, I guess it's 15 feet long and 9 feet wide, big pipe in it, and a cement bed. And they knocked on my door. And you have to go to the back of the room and take your pocket out and hold your head down and your hands out. And two men opened with truncheons, and they said, Senor Reeves, we have a book here for you. And I went and thank you, and I went and got my book, and it was a Schofield Bible that my wife had sent me from Holland. Schofield has annotations for all the references in the Bible. That was before the computer time. So I thought, how wonderful. I opened it up, and there's a little C, and it says Claxton Publishing Company, Claxton, Georgia. I said, wow, isn't that something? That's right close to where I live in Georgia, and they make fruit cakes. And she sent this from Holland, and I got this. Isn't that wonderful? And it's a very nice little Bible, a big Bible. So I lay back down, was reading the Bible for a while, and then a knock on the door. I was there 17 months, and this only happened. I got two gifts. Bang, bang, bang on the door, and I went to the back, pockets out, hands down. Senor Reeves, we have another book for you. And I went there and I looked. And I picked it up, just a little paperback book. Jerry Clower, a friend of mine from Douglas, Georgia, had sent it. And I tore it open. It said, ain't God great? Your family loves you, Roger. And the little book, and I said, what in the world? He says, the Father Heart of God, and it had a picture of a big hand and a baby. And what Jerry's sending me this little book for? And I opened it up, and there was Claxton Publishing Company, Claxton, Georgia. And I said, what in the world now? God must be in this. And I turned it over, and there's a missionary from Holland.
Wow.
On the back, he had wrote it, Floyd McLuhan. And it was something to do with the beginning of Youth with a Mission. And I read the book, and I got other books that he wrote. And he's talking about going up in Holland and was given land to start this for youth for Christ. So time locked around, and I was in prison. And in the third book of John, said, you must be born again. The wind blows. How do you know where it blows? It's going to come. It comes over you. Well, the Spirit of God's going to come on you, and you no way you're going to go into heaven unless you are born again.
Right.
So it troubled me. Are you born again, Roger? If you die tonight, where are you going, boy? I mean, this is some thoughts of mine. So that I know that chapter almost by heart, and went on and was extradited to Germany, and I got 8 or 9 years, I forget what, for using a German citizen in in an international crime. Never been to Germany, never made a phone call, never did anything. But I hired a captain of a ship to haul some hashish, and he told after I gave him the money, and they told him, if you tell us who give you this money, you'll be home by Christmas. They just forgot to tell him which Christmas. So he got 7 years, and I got 8.
Wow.
Anyway, I was in that prison, and I escaped. I went through the bars, and the skin was completely off of me. I lost my clothes. I jumped on top of a guard tower, a machine gun nest, right, bam, and went over the walls and hit a solid stand and ran, and a guard's wife tried to run over me and knocking off the parking meters. And I got away nearly naked and got to Holland. I mean, I didn't have much skin left on me. And so the lady, my wife's cousin, is a devout Christian lady, and after I got some clothes, she said, would you like to go to church with us, Roger? I said, I'd like to, but it'd be mostly in the Netherlands language or the Dutch. She said, oh, no, part of it's in English. So there was two or three carloads got going, and we went a long way in Holland. I thought, this country's not that big. It was raining, and we got off of a road and went on a little gravel road and went over a bridge. And I said, Maria, is this place called Heatherwild? Foot come off of the gas, and she said, I've been to Holland before. How in the world do you know about this place? I said, well, I know Floyd McLuhan. She said, you know him? I said, yes. He said, oh, he's a famous man. And I said, oh, really? I said, well, I know him. I met him and I read his books. He said, yes, this is where they teach the children, the young people. So went on into the place that night. And it was a little bit too Pentecostal for me. They was a little, and the woman on the stage was nice and sang some of the songs, the old Rugged Cross, and one it be Dutch and the other one. And pretty soon it felt, okay, I felt, say, the Holy Spirit. And then she stopped right in the middle of playing songs. And now's the time for prophecy. Does any here have a prophecy to depart to with us? Let them depart. Let them give it. And it sat there for a long time. And I look around, nothing. Somebody better say something, you know. I mean, it's just like you, nothing going on. 400 people in a great big tin building. And then a woman stood up. Oh, I get cold chill bumps when I remember and tell this all over me. And had a bun on her head. And she stood up on the far side and she opened that book. And Jesus said, Gesat to Nicodemus, you must be born again, and the wind bloweth and the boo, 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 boo. I understood every word in that language she was saying. She read that chapter straight to me. Wow. Not the chapter, but the verses. And she sat down. And I was under some conviction until I couldn't breathe hardly. The inside of me, something turned in my guzzle, and it went inside me. And I thought, wow, she was reading that to me for sure. Mm. And I just sit there, and the chair slid out behind me. They had those fold-out chairs, and an old man with loose teeth got up and was talking down my collar. And he said, there's a man in here tonight in a deep black pit. And the Holy Spirit has a message for you, sir. He wants me to tell you that you are born again and you walk with the Lord is closer than you think. And he wants me to tell you that the spirit that lives in you is much stronger than the spirit that lives in the world. Will you stand up, sir? Of course. Wow. That's the loudest God's ever spoke to me.
Wow. That's amazing. Boy, he had his design on you. Boy, he wasn't letting you go. You could escape prison and drug deals and everything else, but you weren't escaping the long arm of the Lord, huh? You know, I got to ask you two things. That's an amazing story, Roger. You know, you and I had a similar situation that I accepted the Lord in prison during my time in the hole. I spent 29 months and 7 days in solitary. And it was the Lord saved my life during that time, no doubt about it.
Good.
But I gotta ask you this, couple of things. One thing, I think I've never asked anybody this question, but I think you're the person that I should ask. And here's the thing. You know, I was my last case, I took a plea for defrauding the government out of tax on every gallon of gasoline. I was stealing the tax money. And I get up in church now, give my testimony, and I say, people, I want to be honest with you. I don't have any moral issue right now with taking money from the government. I don't have a moral issue because I believe I can do better with it than they can at this point in my life because I would share the money, right? And people go, no, Michael, you're wrong. And I said, well, why do you say that? I said, everything that's illegal is not always immoral or sinful. So now hear me.
Absolutely.
So I said to them, and they'll always cite, well, listen, remember when Jesus was questioned about tax money? And his response was, render therefore to Caesar those that are Caesar's and to God the things that are God. And I said, okay, but wait a second. I said, understand the context of that statement that Jesus made. Well, what do you mean? I said, very simple. Jesus had his followers around him. Jesus did not believe that the Roman government should overtax his people. But he had to set an example. He didn't want his people to get in trouble. So he didn't say to them, just steal the tax money. He would have been locked up and his people would have been in trouble at that point. So he answered so brilliantly at that point, render to Caesar what is Caesar's, to God the things that are God. But that doesn't mean that he believed in the Roman Empire overtaxing his people. And it doesn't mean that he believed it was sinful for his people not to pay the tax. How do you feel about that? Because people say, oh, you're justifying your bad act. I said, no, I'm not. I really believe this. I really believe it. Knowing the character of Jesus, knowing his wisdom, knowing how smart he was, I believe that that's what he did at that point in time. What are your thoughts?
Well said. I agree with you 100%.
Well,
100%. We have and most of the governments of the world are corrupt. They're absolutely ruthless and hypocritical. Every one of those judges had committed cardinal sins, and it was punishable by death in Jesus' day.
mm-hmm.
And they came out and gave me life for marijuana or cocaine. What were they doing in the? I mean, we know of judges that snort lines and have sex with their secretaries and come out and give life sentences. We know it. We got that fool, I forget what his name is, Detroit said, I swear I'm going to give 1,000,000 years in prison before I get off the judge. I guess Judge Gilbert saying stuff like that. This is just destroying families, destroying children from their family, mothers and fathers. They have no mercy, no pity. Yeah, just let me have power.
Well, that's why I asked you, did you have any moral issue really? Because I know you're a strong Christian. Your wife's a Christian, obviously. I have another question about that, but did you have any moral issue with what you were doing at the time?
Not really. I don't. My wife was my moral issue. She was so much against it. But uh, I know that, yes, if I had a life to do, I would not change something like that. And the only thing that I had with it is do not put a stumbling block in your brother's path.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be better to have a millstone tied around your neck and to be cast into the depth of the seas and to lead one of these little children away. So I know that. But other than that, it was the government. If it was you and I out there and we had marijuana or cocaine, do you think one of us ought to lock the other one up for 30 years because he grew a plant? Get
That's
out of here. It's hypocritical. Like, and now the prosecutor that prosecuted me is in business. He's in the
yeah,
legal marijuana business, doing well.
unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
Yes,
And let me ask you this, and we can kind of close with this on a real high note. Your wife, I, it's unbelievable, 33 years, because, it's amazing that you said that. My mother passed away in 2012, and she was 33 years without her husband. Now, my mother wasn't a Christian, but she did stay with my father. And at the end of her relationship with him, it was really ugly, Roger, because she blamed him for everything that went wrong in her life, and rightfully
oh,
so. Rightfully so. My family was really destroyed as a result of my dad's, involvement in that life, his imprisonment and everything else. And and me, I hurt my family, going away for 8 years and all of that stuff. But do you believe if your wife wasn't a Christian, do you think she could have waited for you all that time?
absolutely not. No way. In her prayers, she's a strong prayer warrior, and it's her prayers also. It was a great impact, a great carried me through. I just couldn't believe it. I just tell you, after I got out of the prison, I was 18 years down in Australia, and they arrested my wife when she came down. She had $11,000, and they arrested her because she didn't declare it. She said, "It says, do you have over $5,000 Australian funds?" I had none, so I put none. So she's a felon, so she can't come visit me
Wow.
for 18 years. So when I got home, Mr. Jimmy Carter wrote a letter. I wrote him a letter. I had a farm near him, and it says he asked for consider me for parole. And so I got home and I got off the airplane in Los Angeles, and they slammed me into the wall, put leg irons on me, and put me in isolation for a year. The guy opened a little thing and he said, "Reeves, I'm Assistant Warden Short, and we saw your National Geographic documentary, and it does me pleasure to keep you in the chute."
Hmm.
I couldn't get out. I couldn't make but one phone call a month for 9 months for parole violation. But after I had done 11 years, for stuff 43 years before. So I got out and went home. And of course, it's strange to see a person after 19 years to hold her, to touch her, to do that. And there I went in, and there was my chair sitting there, and the old oak table that I carved the legs on and worked on it 60 years ago, and the placemats and the same dishes, the same paintings from her family from Holland on the wall. I cried for 3 days. I couldn't even look at pictures of the children or her, anything. It just I don't know where it come from. The tears just flowed. After about 3 days, I thought, man up, you got to live with this. And so that's how it was coming home to her after all those years.
My gosh, I can't even imagine, knowing the kind of adjustment period my wife and I had after 8 years. How was it, Roger, getting back together with your wife after all that time? I mean, was it strange? Was there an adjustment? How was it?
Yes, it was adjustment. It was just like we were strange. We weren't strangers to each other at all because we talked every day, but it was just physically uh, to touch somebody, to be there and to have it. It was just overwhelming, just absolutely overwhelming. It was just a love that poured out for me, for my children, and and uh, and my wife was just fill you up.
And your children, there had to be some adjustment period. I know I had an adjustment with mine. Mine were young when I went away, and they were a bit older, obviously, when I got home, and it was an adjustment. When I found my youngest daughter, I have 7 kids. My youngest daughter is the only one of my children that I've been with since birth. We've been together, and I do have a closer relationship with her. And all my kids are great, and don't get me wrong there, but there's something, I don't know if I call it special. Maybe it is special. I got to admit to that because I've never been away from her. Did you find did you find that it was kind of tough, or I don't know. I don't even know what I'm asking. How did you get back with them?
They still afraid of me. They don't know what I'm going to do next.
Okay.
But other than that, they love me. My middle daughter was the hardest. I maybe just from her love for me, she was angry with me. She's
Yeah.
a doctor, and she just like no one. And her and my wife are just joined at the hip, so they team up on me.
Oh, I could imagine. Well, you know
And
what? I can't even express the accolades you have to give your wife for just being mother and father for all of those years and keeping the family together. I don't know if people understand how difficult it is. And to do what your wife has done and for you to have a life, it's just unreal. It's absolutely God ordained, no question.
absolutely. And she's just beautiful, just radiates beauty. And I said, I know you, she worked in a beauty shop. I know you're hit on every day. I said, what did you tell him? She said, I just told him I wasn't available. Isn't that sweet?
What a beautiful man. I would hope to meet your wife one day. Really, that would be and my
Good.
wife would love meeting her also. Really.
Let's do
Hopefully.
it.
Do you ever come back to the States?
Yeah, I'm gonna come back. I'm having a good time over here.
Well, please,
See
if you
these
do, look,
ivory tusk behind me?
it looks great. Yeah, you look like you got a
Yeah,
great setup there. Really great. But if you ever do come back, please get in touch with me. I mean that. You know,
let's do it,
I'm
please.
sure my wife would love to meet your wife, and so would I, and it would just be great. We'd have so much to talk about. I gotta ask you this one question I forgot though, and this was I read somewhere that you had said that Seal paid millions in bribes to the Clintons when Bill was in Arkansas, when he was the governor of Arkansas. Is there any truth to that?
I didn't give Bill Clinton any money, but I handed it to Barry Seal, $50,000 every time he landed. And he said, I'm going to go to have dinner with the governor tonight. I'm going off to do this. I think that he handed it to the sheriff there,
Yeah.
and that it was passed off. He said, it's impossible for me to get caught in Arkansas. And so it's impossible for me to get caught in Colombia and in Nicaragua. So that's rock and roll. So that's what we did.
Well, I can
So
tell you this. Nobody listening into this would be one bit surprised in that. That's for sure. Because
well, look how many people have been killed around them. Read about the two boys dead on the railroad track. The coon hunters, they're 15 years old, shot and killed, put under the train, and the was it whoever goes to the morgue said it was an accident.
yeah.
Those mothers are still wondering what happened. Poor people.
Well, you know what? The Clintons have quite a story, and I don't even want to get into that because how they've
No,
escaped everything. how they've escaped and everything well, I don't even want to get into that because I get mad when
Well,
I'm talking about it.
let's just say, let me just tell you what the truth is. His brother, Roger Clinton, got caught with cocaine, and Bill pardoned him, but he didn't pardon me.
Yeah. Well, that
And
says it all there.
he raised the penalty 100 times on crack cocaine while he was in there. He built 1,000-bed prison every month that he was in there. No schools were built. Children, families devastated. 1 gram was like 100 grams. It was just what hypocritical. And now I'm with Epstein and all that. Good gracious alive.
I'll tell
Should
you
have horns.
we're all going to stand in front of the Lord one day, and it's something I think about all the time. I know you do. I'd hate to be them if they don't repent. That's for sure. Either the Clintons, both of them. But
Yes.
anyway, Roger, this is I mean, I can speak with you for hours. Hopefully we get a chance to do this again. But what an amazing story. I really mean that. You have an incredible, I don't think I've encountered anybody, and I've never said this before, that had a story such as yours. And it's amazing, a testament to God's mercy and grace, number one, and number two, just having his hand on you and your wife. What an incredible story, really. I'm
Thank
fascinated.
you, Michael. I know it is. I look back on it and said, I didn't do that, did I?
Amazing that. Can I ask, how old are you?
I'm 81.
81. Well, you look terrific for 81.
Thank you.
I
I
mean,
still do 100 push-ups without slowing down.
well, you look really great. I would have thought you were in your, early 70s. I'm
I
73.
can't hear very well. What was that?
No, you really look great. You're in good health, praise
Thank
God.
you. Mari, where are you? Come here. I want you to meet Michael.
I'd love to.
I'm going to give her my seat. You talk to her for a minute.
Yeah, I'd love to, really.
Hello,
How
Michael.
I have to say this, Murray. My wife, I consider her an angel and a saint. She waited for me 8 years and went through more challenges with me. And but your life, I mean, it's just incredible. I mean, I can't even describe it. I really mean it. 33 years
Mm.
without your husband, waiting faithfully. You are a shining example of God's grace, and I don't even know what to say. I feel like I'm humbled in your presence. And I really mean that,
Oh,
understanding what this is all about, having been through it myself on lesser a scale than you and your husband. And
right. Well, doesn't that demonstrate God's power and his influence in our life if we allow him to work in our lives? I mean,
absolutely.
if I was thinking of 33 years without Roger, I thought, oh, what a mountain. I don't know if I can do this. But it was just one day at a time. I had the children, I had a job, I had three wonderful girlfriends that knew Roger and I prior to his incarceration. And they loved me unconditionally. And yes, there were bad days. There were thorns on the rose bush. There were roses and lots of thorns, but the Lord brought me through this all. He sustained me.
Wow.
Yes.
And your husband said that you're a prayer warrior. I have to tell you a quick story. It was my mother-in-law, my wife's mother, my mother-in-law,
Yes.
prayer warrior. She actually had a prayer book that was the size of a telephone book because she had prayed so
Oh
much throughout
my.
her life. And Marie, she didn't need to know your name. If she just looked at you,
Mm,
she'd describe you and she'd sit on her porch, very simple woman, pray, pray, pray. I
mhm,
believe that woman prayed me to where I am today. So
mm.
I really respect and believe in the power of prayer because of my mother-in-law and now yourself. You're the second. But
Yes. Yeah.
um, you have to promise me that if you ever get to the United States, I would love for you to meet my wife. I would love to sit down and just all of us sit down and just give praise to God and get to know each other because it's really incredible, really.
I look forward to that, Michael. Thank you for that invitation. I really do look forward to that. And Roger and I will make a very special effort to do that.
Well, I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
And
We're loving South Africa. We just love it.
really, that's one place I haven't
Yeah.
visited yet, but people told me I should have it on my bucket list. So maybe.
Oh, definitely. Yes.
Excellent. Well, God bless you, and you just I hope the rest of your life is just blessed and blessed and blessed, and hopefully we
It
do get a
is.
chance to meet up.
God's opened up the windows and just pouring it down.
Wonderful.
All right. Okay. I'll just say goodbye for now.
Yes, goodbye for now, and
All
we will.
right.
I believe we'll see each other again. So God bless you.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Michael. Thank you so much.
Bye bye now.
Bye-bye for now.
Bye.
All right, my friends. Well, there you have it. Honestly, have you ever heard more of an incredible story than that of Roger Reeves? First of all, the man's 81 years old. Do you see what he looks? It looks like great shape. You know, I got to say it. But what an amazing story to do all that prison time. And I'll tell you this, I'm going to tell you what blew me away out of all of this. My wife waited for me 8 years. We had a lot of challenges throughout that time. I was able to visit her most of the time, you know, so at least we had that communication. We did get phone calls. I was able to write her. But his wife waited for him for 33 years. 33 years. 18 of those years when he was in Australia in a prison there because she had been arrested on nonsense stuff. She couldn't visit him. 33 years she waited. It's unbelievable. And they have a great marriage. And I asked him during that time, was there an adjustment period? How did you relate to your kids? It was just a fantastic story. But I got to tell you this, people. You don't want to bring religion into it, but you have to. This guy's faith in the Lord, his wife, a praying wife like my mother-in-law, she prayed them through all of this adversity. It's an unbelievable story. And let me tell you something. I asked him straight out, if your wife wasn't a Christian, if she wasn't a praying woman, would she have stayed with you? He said, absolutely not. And you saw her at the end. She had this kind of peaceful feeling on her, this aura on her face. Reminds me of my mother-in-law before she passed away, and she was so sure that she was going home to our Lord. It's amazing when people are really in peace or at peace with the Lord, you can see it. You know, and I see this all the time on especially elderly people in church that are just so secure in their faith. It's just an amazing feeling. It really is, people. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you get something out of it. I hope you realize that no matter what you've gone through in your life, that if God has got his design on you and you allow him to work in your life, anything positive could happen. And this man, even after all the adversity he's gone through, look at the smile on his face. Listen to how he tells the story. What amazing recall he has. And you know, you can tell when people are embellishing something, but the way he just rattled things off and remembered little details, and this man was telling the truth. I mean, this was an absolutely amazing story, and there's so much more to tell, and I hope to have him back on again. And it just was amazing. Kind of made my day, I'm going to be honest with you. So Roger Reeves, go get the book, Smuggler. Get the book. I think you're going to enjoy it. Barry Seal, remember what he said? He didn't give it to him personally, but he handed Barry Seal money to give to Governor Clinton when he was in Arkansas. The guy was on the take back then. The Clintons, what they've gotten away with in their life, you know, they're going to answer to it at some point. That's for sure. You know, either in this life or the next, we answer for what we did. So I just hope they straighten themselves out, because fortunately, even for them, even for the worst of us, the worst of the worst, we have God's grace and mercy that he will shed upon us. If our hearts are sincere and we seek him out seriously, he'll do that. So that's it for today, my friends. How do I always leave you? The same way. It's not going to change. Please be safe. Please be healthy. And I mean this to every one of you. God bless all of you and your families. And yes, God willing, I'll see you next time. You take care.